So before this video kicks off and before I dive on into the Ohio State portion of it and really talking about everything related to the Buckeyes in this game, I do want to give a huge shout out, a huge congratulations, a massive job well done to the Missouri Tigers. Look, this was a very ugly defensive grinded out game, and as soon as Brady Cook hit that deep shot to Johnson there late in the ball game, I kind of knew that that was under wraps. Ohio State's defense had played phenomenally all game long, but Missouri is just simply too good of an offensive team to keep them at bay for that long. And I think it's kind of poetic that Missouri not only did what they did this year, but also beat my team in a New Year's Six bowl game for the reason that I definitely severely undervalued this team. A lot of the national media entering the year had this team at 6-6 or 7-5. They were picked 13th in the SEC. They were picked 6th in the SEC East. Nobody was looking at Missouri as any sort of threat. Sure, there were a couple people out there that, hey, maybe thought they could be sneaky, pull out some good wins, maybe even upset a team or two, but nobody except for maybe the most diehard of diehard Missouri Tiger fans expected what just transpired throughout the entire season. Cody Schrader, huge congratulations to him, man. I do believe he is going to the next level. That kid is an absolute baller, and I think he's going to make it big no matter what team ends up drafting him. His story is incredible, going from Truman State, which is a Division II school, to being a walk-on at Missouri, to now being a 1,500. He might have even gotten to 1,600 yards after this game was all said and done. Huge congratulations to him, Brady Cook, and Luther Burden. Those guys are some really, really good weapons there as well. Do believe Luther Burden is coming back. I'd like to see Brady Cook come back for another season there as well, because Missouri is going to be very dangerous next year. Now, I do believe they have to go on the road and play Bama. I think you have to go on the road and play A&M, and you got a couple other games mixed in there as well. I believe Oklahoma is coming to Columbia. Again, I'm not too familiar with their schedule, but the Missouri Tigers, I know this is a game that's going to rub faithful of the Scarlet and Gray all the wrong ways, and we'll talk about why that is in a second and why I don't think it should be that big of a deal to Buckeye Nation. But back to my point about this being poetic, I had this team going 5-7, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about it up until the start of next college football season. Hey, you know what? Predictions are made to be broken, as I like to say. It just warms my heart that Missouri was able to really do this. Now, obviously, it sucks that it was against my team, and I think I can speak for all of Buckeye Nation when this is not the way that, we wanted to send our seniors, our draft picks out. This is not the way that we wanted the season to end. However, it is a huge moment for the Missouri Tigers. A lot of people came into this game thinking that if Missouri wins, it was going to be a program definer. I think given the circumstances, it definitely feels like a big win for the program, but I don't think it's a program definer. Now, regardless, I think Missouri is going to be a very good team next year and a team that can absolutely threaten to make the 12-team playoff. Huge congratulations to Missouri, to Eli Drinkwitz, for not only proving me wrong, but for beating my team and going on this tremendous season. This is going to be a very dangerous team in 2024. I'm definitely not going to make the same mistake again when trying to predict what Missouri is going to be doing here in 2024. Phenomenal season for them. Huge win. Congratulations to the Missouri Tigers. Now let's dive on into the Ohio State portion of this video. Buckeye fans, how do we feel? Right? I think there's going to be a lot of mixed emotions here in this game, but the first thing I'm going to say is, look, you guys know my thoughts on Ryan Day and where I think Ryan Day should be. It's in Columbus. This is only his 8th loss. This is his 5th year coaching, and this is his 8th loss. I know there have been a ton of Buckeye faithful out there that have gone the very aggressive route of wanting to fire Ryan Day and of wanting to get him out of town. He can't beat Michigan. He can't win the big game, etc., etc., etc. And you guys know, and I'll say it once again, and I'll defend it till the day that I die, Ryan Day does not need to go anywhere. I do not think that he is the problem. I don't think there is a problem in Columbus, mind you. I just think, hey, look, Michigan, sorry, Buckeye faithful, Michigan was a better team than us this year. They won that game. Missouri entering this game, I don't necessarily know if they were the better team, but they played like the better team, especially offensively here in this game. That defense showed out and played really, really well. Missouri is a team that, again, you have to watch out for. You have to be fearful of. And again, I wasn't going to be too surprised if Ohio State lost this game. Does the loss sadden me? Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but us as Buckeye fans are spoiled, right? We get double-digit wins every single year. This has probably been the most consistent program in the country over the past half century, and they really put it in the light there in the pregame show. Ohio State is the only team in the country that has made a New Year's Six bowl game each of the 10 seasons that the 14 playoff has been in, whether that's the playoff or any of the other New Year's Six labeled games. Not even Alabama has been able to do that. That just shows the consistency of this program, and especially over the past 5 years, it shows how good Ohio State and how good of a coach Ryan Day has been. I do not think it's a Ryan Day issue. I don't even think it's a talent issue. Now, some of the philosophies and things may have to change, and I think Ryan Day does need to give up some of the offensive play calling duties, if not most of them, to a true offensive play caller. Give the play sheet to Brian Hartline or anybody else and let him make some calls here, right? But this is still a very talented Ohio State roster going into the next season. The loss, sure, while it sucks, it doesn't really sadden me. I'm more happy for Missouri than I am sitting here kicking myself because my team just lost a football game. Yes, it sucks to lose the final game of the season, especially now that Ohio State is on a 2-game losing streak, because you have to go back to that loss to the Michigan Wolverines as well. But when I take a look at this Buckeye team, look, there are definitely a ton of questions entering 2024, and I'm going to dive on into a lot, if not most of them here in this video. However, this was a game that as soon as Devin Brown went down, I knew that this Buckeye team was in trouble. So Devin Brown, I mean, cleats work. They maybe worked a little bit too good here. His ankle got twisted up, and he tried to fight through it, tried to play a series, got hit again, lost the ball on a play that, look, there was really not a whole lot to talk about throughout this game. These two offenses at times felt like we were watching Pee-wee 7-year-old flag football, where there just isn't a lot of offensive talent. Now, obviously, that is an exaggeration, but I think I speak for a lot of people watching this game that is definitely what it felt like. Now, obviously, Missouri ended up finding some offensive rhythm late, and even Ohio State found offensive rhythm throughout the game. It was just too often than not this offensive line allowing pressure to get back to the quarterback, which happened to be Lincoln Kienholz, who I'm probably pronouncing that last name wrong, and I'll probably say 80 different pronunciations of that kid's last name throughout this video. But I mean, credit to him going out there, giving it the good old college try, as you would say here. I know Ryan Day and that staff are very, very hopeful about his future, about Lincoln's future. They were very concerned about putting him in the game. In fact, they didn't really trust him for the first couple of drives. They were giving the ball to Travion Henderson a lot. There were a couple of end-around plays that got ran, and all that Missouri had to do was stack the box. Even though they were without a couple really big pieces in that defensive front seven, Missouri still had a lot of very dynamic playmakers, and they showed it here in this game. Missouri was able to pretty much do whatever they wanted against the Ohio State offensive front. That did make a change. We put someone in, Vahima, I believe is that name, first or last, that just only had one career start here entering this game. Now, that change might have disrupted some of the chemistry, but I think this was just a bad game for the offensive line in general. I don't think they played well at all. There were a couple plays where they got a couple good blocks, had a couple good holes that Travion Henderson was able to slip through, times where they were able to protect the quarterback, but more often than not, Missouri brought a ton of blitzes, a ton of pressure. They were able to pretty much do whatever they wanted in the Buckeye backfield, and that's part of the reason a lot of these offensive drives stalled. Now, obviously, when you throw in a true freshman third string quarterback, as Ohio State had to do with Lincoln here in this game, there are going to be mistakes. And Lincoln, you could definitely just kind of tell that he was underprepared. He wasn't really ready to play. There were a ton of nerves. The coaching staff, again, as I spoke on earlier, didn't really trust him at the beginning of his play. Now, they started to put the ball more and more in his hands, and he had some pretty good throws here. A couple plays that definitely weren't made, and he definitely missed low a lot of the time. Now, I'd rather him miss low than miss high, because that's how balls get picked. But this is an Ohio State offense that has a ton of playmakers. And obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play in this game, I think, as a surprise to really what should be as a surprise to absolutely nobody. Was not surprised at all that Marvin Harrison Jr. decided not to play. And I think Buckeye faithful are going to get announcement, if not tonight, definitely tomorrow morning, that Marvin Harrison Jr. has decided to enter his name into the NFL draft, where in all likelihood he's going to be a top 3 pick, if not the number 1 pick, especially if that pick happens to belong to the Chicago Bears, who could really use a dynamic playmaker like Marvin Harrison Jr. But that is another video. Let's talk about the guys that played here in this game. Look, Ohio State had a lot of very good moments, and the defense played well for the majority of the game. Again, once this Missouri team started to find their offensive stride, it was game over, because this was an Ohio State offense that was making some good plays, right? But more often than not, Missouri was able to live in this Buckeye backfield, and that is what really sealed this game. I knew that Missouri was going to find their offensive rhythm eventually, and even with a guy like Lincoln at quarterback, Ohio State has enough offensive weapons, such as Henderson and Egbuka and Stover and so many others. Now, Stover wasn't fully healthy, didn't get fully involved here in this game, but Emeka made a lot of nice plays, as did Travion Henderson. X had some pretty good end arounds, ended up getting popped there. I think just got the wind taken out of him there, got hit kind of right in this area. You can't see where I'm pointing at all, but I'm holding my diaphragm, and those of us that have played any sport know that, yeah, getting hit there, it is not fun. So look, I give a lot of credit to this the Missouri team, yes, but a lot of credit to Lincoln as well. I mean, that's not easy when you're expecting Devin Brown to go out there and show off his talent and show off what he can do. And this was really the audition for Devin Brown to see if he was going to be the quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes next year. Now, obviously, we're going to talk more about that here later. But for the Buckeyes overall, this was just a game where I think you got to put it behind you. Now, I believe I've spoke earlier in this video that it's going to fire Buckeye Nation up, and there's going to be all the sorts of things of Ryan Day needs to be fired, this team is not tough enough, and this and that, and so many things are going to be said here about Ryan Day, about this program, throughout the next 8 to 9 months, all the way up until the Buckeye season starts on August 31st of 2024. I, for one, am really excited for 2024. I have been a proponent of expanding the playoff forever. I think the 12-team playoff is going to put the spotlight on a ton more programs, and it's going to put more of a spotlight on programs like Missouri and Ole Miss and some of those other teams. Well, Ole Miss is not necessarily up and coming, but you guys get my point. It's going to put the spotlight on teams like Missouri that have been able to make this magical run. They are in the playoffs, and they finally will get a chance to compete for a national title, as well as some of those group of 5 teams. Look at Liberty, look at SMU, even a school like James Madison can really move up there and compete with the big boys next year and compete for a national title. So I think the 12-team playoff is going to be really, really fun. However, for Ohio State specifically, there are going to be a ton of questions that are going to have to be answered entering next season. For starters, let's talk about the roster as it stands today. I think I hope at least I'm not shocking any faithful of the Scarlet and Gray out there when I say Marvin Harrison Jr. probably is not coming back. I mean, if he would have suited up and he would have played here for this game, I think I could sit here and say there may be a pretty strong likelihood that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be back. However, I just do not believe that to be the case. I believe, again, like I said, sometime tomorrow morning, sometime soon, he is going to announce his decision to enter the NFL draft. Sorry, I had to fix something real quick. So aside from Marvin Harrison Jr., let's talk about some of the other players here that definitely have the option to go into the NFL, or they have the option to come back. I know there was a big rumor floating around, and I say rumor for a reason you're about to find out in a second, that Travion Henderson was going to come back and play for the Buckeyes in 2024. And then when you go watch people's videos on, hey, these are my early Heisman contenders, Henderson was on that list, top running backs in the country entering 2024, Henderson was on that list. It wasn't too long ago where Henderson put out a tweet from his own account that said, I have not made a decision on any of that yet. I have no idea where my 2024 is going to be played, whether that's in Columbus or that's in the National Football League. So pending there on Travion Henderson, I would be surprised, honestly, if he doesn't come back considering everything, which would mean it'd be him and Dallin Hayden. That would be the backfield with Chip Trayanum transferring out, which I think would be a very dynamic backfield. You guys know my opinion on Dallin Hayden. I think he's fantastic. But then you also have to look at the biggest playmaker in this game offensively for the Buckeyes, maybe besides Henderson, and that was Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka is a guy that he definitely could come back in the next season. Now, will he? Again, remains to be seen. If he goes to the draft, probably going to be a mid to late first round, if not early second round draft pick here for any of the teams that possibly made the playoffs that are looking to boost up their wide receiver core. The Cleveland Browns. Oh, sorry, that just happened to slip out. Yes, I'm a Browns fan, if that wasn't clear. But hey, just taking a look at some of the guys that can come back. Again, Emeka Egbuka, I'd be ecstatic if he came back. Anybody on that defensive front, if they came back, Jack Sawyer, JTT, some of those other players that have eligibility remaining, they can come back. The biggest defensive player probably that can come back is Denzel Burke. At the cornerback, what a get back that would be. There's already a ton of talent that's going to be returning in the defensive backfield for Ohio State in 2024. We're still going to have a ton of talent offensively, even if Henderson and Egbuka don't come back. Again, I think Dallin Hayden, once he gets a full offseason of work with first team, even second team reps, he's going to be really, really good. Evan Pryor may even still have some eligibility remaining as well. And this wide receiver room is still absolutely loaded. I mean, Carnell Tate's going to be a stud. Brandon Inniss also probably going to end up being a stud. And then the Buckeyes just signed the #1 overall recruit in the country, and Jeremiah Smith, who there was a guy, and I apologize, the name is slipping my mind. I sincerely apologize. I don't know why I can't remember the name, but he had covered high school football in the state of Florida for not centuries. Wow, that would be a pretty impressive feat if he did that. But since 1975, and he has stated that Jeremiah Smith is a top 3 Florida high school football player of all time. That's pretty big praise and a really highly rated recruit coming in here. That's absolutely going to be a boost to this wide receiver room. So it's going to be very interesting to see what sort of guys go pro, what sort of guys come back. That could really, it's not necessarily going to make or break this Buckeye roster, because this is Ohio State we're talking about. There's going to be a ton of talent, whether those guys go to the NFL or whether or not they come back. Now, obviously, it's a huge boost if those guys come back. And sure, I'd love to see guys like Henderson give it another go. Egbuka is going to be the #1 wide receiver if he comes back next season. Denzel Burke's going to be one of the best corners in America if he comes back. Same with that defensive front. This team will be scary if everyone besides Marvin Harrison Jr., because I think it's pretty clear that he's gone, comes back that is NFL draft eligible, gives another run. I think this is an Ohio State team that automatically becomes one of the favorites to win the national championship. Not that they aren't normally, but higher than they may normally be. However, the biggest question, by far, the biggest question for 2024 is, what do you make of the quarterback situation? Now, before I talk about that, something else small that's coming to mind is that offensive line situation. There was a change made at offensive line. Don't know if I've talked about this earlier. If I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But there was a change on the offensive line that I think disrupted some of the chemistry. Now, again, I'm not too sure off the top of my head if there was an injury or anything like that. But that's definitely a question mark as well, as I do believe there are going to be some guys that go off to the NFL, unless, of course, they decide to come back. But back to the bigger storyline regarding 2024. It's this quarterback room, right? We were supposed to learn whether or not Devin Brown was going to be the guy here in this game. And obviously, you can't really judge things based off of 2 drives. Now, did he look great in the time that he played? No. I mean, that first drive, there were definitely a ton of nerves. He wasn't really making the throws that he needed to throw, or that he wasn't making the plays that needed to be made, wasn't making the easy throws, was overthrowing, underthrowing guys like crazy. And you take him to the sideline and you say, okay, Devin, it's time to settle down. You have a drive under your belt. Let's find some things that work and go out there and play a good game. And then he ended up getting hurt. So you can't judge anything at all based off of the performance that Devin Brown put up here today. You can't do it. Now, look, there were moments where he had some pretty good throws. Not a lot of moments for him to get outside of the pocket and run. Were a couple design plays called for him that just didn't work out. One of them, I believe, was him getting hurt. I believe it was a design quarterback run where his cleat, again, just got kind of caught in the turf. His ankle ended up rolling up on him, and that's what put him out of this game and put Lincoln into the game here. But Devin Brown, we still really don't know. The biggest question for Devin Brown is there was absolutely no doubt that he was a more mobile quarterback than Kyle McCord, which, my mistake, I haven't even spoken on. Hey, that shocked me when he entered the portal, obviously off at Syracuse, out of the Buckeyes hair, along with Julian Fleming, who's probably going to end up winding up here at Penn State. But Devin Brown, this was his audition tape. We were going to find out whether or not Devin Brown was the guy for 2024, or whether it may have to be someone else who's not in Scarlet and Gray yet, or maybe we'd have to go out and get someone from the transfer portal, or maybe Aaron Noland was going to step up. Ryan Day has come out and said he does not want to enter the transfer portal if he doesn't have to. And I think this is a coaching staff that has a lot to feel good about when you take a look at Devin Brown from a ceiling level. I think his ceiling is a lot higher than what Kyle McCord's was. Watching him in warm-ups, preparing for this game, he was hitting some really, really good throws. His mobility, obviously, we know is a huge strength of his, and he could still be quarterback one entering next year. However, there isn't a lot for the fan base to really look at and say, yep, that's our guy for 2024. So there's going to have to be a lot of things that get worked out in spring, during the spring game, and summer and fall camp to really see if he is the guy. Another name that might end up taking the reins here is Aaron Noland, that borderline 4 or 5-star recruit that is coming into Ohio State next year. He has a ton of upside as well. He's going to be a really, really good player. And if Ryan Day decides not to go to the transfer portal, then those are the two guys that likely are going to be battling for the starting job. Now, I'm sure Lincoln is going to battle for that starting job as well, but I think I speak for a lot of Buckeye faithful when, look, Lincoln showed us a lot of things to be sort of proud about and look upon as like, hey, you know what? He's got some pretty good talent there, but it was just, no offense to Lincoln or anyone, I just don't see him outperforming the likes of Devin Brown or even Aaron Noland, who's a freshman coming in. I like Lincoln. I think he plays a very effective style of game, but he panicked way too much. There were a couple things that just didn't seem right when Lincoln was in. The coaching staff just didn't fully 100% trust him. I think Lincoln, and again, the coaching staff has significant praise for Lincoln. Ask any single one of them. They will tell you that Lincoln is a baller and a guy that's going to have a really, really good future. Will it be in scarlet and gray? Will it not be? Remains to be seen. But I think, much like most of Buckeye Nation, without the likes of the transfer portal, it'll be Devin Brown and Aaron Noland that battles for that starting job next year. And what sort of weapons they have? Well, you're obviously going to have Carnell Tate. You're going to have Brandon Ennis, and you're going to have Jeremiah Smith, who's going to see significant playing time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Jeremiah Smith is simply too talented of a player for you to redshirt. You're going to have to use him in some capacity next year. I believe that wholeheartedly. Again, we'll fully see what happens. We'll fully see what the coaching staff decides to do with Jeremiah Smith, my apologies, once he gets to Columbus. But taking a look at the quarterback battle, it's Devin Brown, it's Aaron Noland. I think those are the two guys that are going to compete for the starting job. Now, does this game make Ryan Day go out and search through the transfer portal? Maybe get a guy like Cam Ward, who hasn't committed anywhere yet. Get a guy like Will Howard, who I think, according to him and according to a lot of crystal ball predictions, is down to either USC or Ohio State as that final destination. Who knows? Who knows what Ryan Day does? I know he has come out and said, look, I don't want to enter the transfer portal if I don't have to. He's going to stick with the guys that he recruits. And honestly, I'd be fine with that. I think Devin Brown has some pretty high upside. Again, just continue to develop that passing ability. Now, instead of a month to prepare for one game, he has 9 months to prepare for 12 games and maybe even 13, because in all likelihood, this should be an Ohio State team that finds their way into the 12-team college football playoff. Again, this has been the most consistent team. Kind of hard been the most consistent team, at least over the past 10 years. They've been the only team that has made a New Year's Six bowl game for all 10 seasons that the 14 playoff has existed, and it's kind of hard to imagine this team not making it. Now, could they? Absolutely. There's going to be a ton of talented teams next year, a ton of chaos that happens. Everybody is going to be pushing for a spot for that 12-team playoff, and it's just going to be so much fun to watch and to really see unfold here, right? But when I take a look at this Ohio State team for next year, you man down that quarterback spot, you take a look at all the talent that's coming back offensively, defensively, whatever have you. Okay, I apologize for whatever graphical things just happened there. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to keep going here. But again, it's going to come down to Aaron Noland or Devin Brown, in my opinion, for the starting job, unless, of course, Ohio State goes out and gets a transfer. The talent that is around this team, you're going to have a good wide receiver room, as Ohio State has had in years past. Who knows if Travion Henderson comes back, and even if he doesn't, I think Dallin Hayden's going to be really, really good. Even if guys like Denzel Burke and some of those defensive linemen don't come back, it's still going to be a very, very talented Ohio State team. Now, there are going to be a ton of questions And Buckeye faithful are going to be fired up about this game throughout the entirety of the spring, the summer, and for the rest of the winter here as well. And honestly, to some extent, rightfully so. I'm not going to take the Ryan Day firing crap because that is blasphemy. And again, I don't have to go through that again. You guys know how I feel about talks about Ryan Day being fired. The man is what, 57-8 now? I mean, come on. He is a really, really good coach. That's not the problem. He has to definitely relinquish some of those play calling duties and give them to a guy like Brian Hartline or someone else that has a really, really good offensive mind. Not that Ryan Day doesn't, but give it to someone else who really can step up there and call some plays here for this team. But I mean, that wraps up another season here for the Ohio State Buckeyes. 11-2 for the third straight year. Yeah, for the third straight year. 11-2 for the third straight year. I'm not complaining too much. Hey, that is a double-digit win season. You still made a New Year's Six bowl game. You still have a ton of momentum entering next season. And even though this game feels like, wow, what a disappointing way to send out our seniors, what a disappointing way to send out our NFL draft picks that played in this game, I got to give this Buckeye team credit, man. Everybody was all in. I know all you hear about during bowl season usually is opt-outs. But for a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., hey, I understand the whole opt-out situation. You don't want to risk injury going into the NFL draft. I've always been someone that's looked at people like that and said, if you can't improve your draft stock, then really you sitting out shouldn't be that big of a deal. Now, I know there are a lot of people hate it, and opt-outs ruin college football. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and listen to any of that there as well. But I mean, taking a look at this team, still a really, really good 2023. And I know there are going to be Buckeye fans out there that say, well, this offense was atrocious all season long. Ryan Day is the most overrated coach in America. So what? He's 57-8. He can't win the big games, right? He can't beat Michigan. Hasn't won a national title yet. Whoop-de-doo. He's only lost 8 games. I'm not going to deal with any of that. Ryan Day is not the problem. This roster is not the problem. Again, Ohio State got caught in a very unfortunate circumstance here today, and Missouri, albeit, was the better team on the field here today. That Buckeye defense played awesome. I am very excited to see what Jim Knowles dials up here in 2024, because year one in 2021, you really felt like, okay, or in 2022, my apologies, you really felt like, okay, Jim Knowles a little bit too conservative here, a ton of big plays allowed, or I should say a little too aggressive in 2022. Now you come into 2023 and you're probably thinking, yeah, this was a little too conservative. You could have brought some more blitz packages. You were playing it safe to not allow the big play, so on and so forth. I think he's really going to find that happy medium in 2024. This Buckeye defense was already one of the best in the country this year, and no matter if there are players like Denzel Burke and some of the others that come back that can, then I still think this is going to be a really good Buckeye defense next season as well. Same with the offense. I have a hard time imagining that the offense takes another step back. Again, Kyle McCord was not going to be C.J. Stroud. And for those that expected C.J. Stroud to embody Kyle McCord and for Kyle McCord to do all these crazy offensive things, I think those are the same people that are going to say this offense has sucked all season long. This offense was efficient at times. It was really good when it needed to be, and sure, it made mistakes. And yeah, sure, this team had a lot of very good playmakers that probably didn't have as good of a season as they could have had. Marv had an impeccable season. He won the Biletnikoff Award, for goodness sake, and was a Heisman finalist. Emeka Egbuka battled some injuries. Travion Henderson battled some injuries. I think this is going to be a very, very, maybe not necessarily important, but a very interesting season next year in 2024. I look forward to it thoroughly. You got a ton of new teams entering the Big Ten Conference. The SEC is getting new teams, Texas and Oklahoma. And by the way, Ohio State's got to play one of those new teams on the road. They got to go to Autzen Stadium to play the Oregon Ducks, who now have Dylan Gabriel. Boy, I'm excited for that one. We have Penn State on the road, Michigan, of course, at home. Iowa gets to come to Columbus as well. No real big non-conference game for the Buckeyes next year. I do believe they end up playing Texas the year after, Washington down the line. Of course, we have the series with Bama and Georgia coming up in the 2030s. I'm not too worried about the future for Buckeye football. I still think It looks bright, and this absolutely is a team year in and year out, and this game gives me no reason to say otherwise why this team still can't be a national championship contender year in and year out, because they will be. Ohio State will be back. Again, really good win to the Missouri Tigers. Really happy for this program. Watch out for Eli Drinkwitz's group in 2024, but the Buckeyes entering 2024 have a lot of questions, yes, but I guarantee you that they will all be answered. Meanwhile, the Buckeye faithful, I know, are going to be fired up here, and again, fans are going to be fans, and they're going to say what fans are going to say. A disappointing way to end 2023, yes. However, 2024 could be even brighter. You answer some questions, you get some things ironed out. I am really excited to see this team here in 2024. Going to be a very, very interesting year, given every circumstance, with the new teams, with the new quarterback. This is just going to be a very fascinating season across college football in its entirety in 2024. Again, sad to see my Buckeyes close out the season with a loss in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, just their second ever loss to the Missouri Tigers. They are now 10-2-1 against Missouri all time. But again, as I've said many times, a good win for Eli Drinkwitz and company. Can't wait to see what they do in 2024 as well. But that brings another close to another season of Ohio State fan reactions. Thank you for all the love and support the channel has seen. Again, continue to stay up to date with the channel so you guys can hear my thoughts on the college football playoff and about the national championship game once we get that matchup as well. I'm signing off my OSFR reaction series for this season until next year in 2024. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys next year. OHIO. Go Bucks. I'll see you next year. Goodbye.